Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into the world of consumer goods inspection?
We're going to help you absolutely crush that interview and land that dream job.
We're going way beyond the usual generic advice you see out there.
Yeah.
We've got some seriously powerful resources for you today from RoleCatcher.
It's like having a secret weapon.
Their AI platform helps you tailor your answers and get feedback specifically for the roles you're applying for.
It's like having a personal interview coach in your pocket.
But before we get to all that, let's step back for a second.
Yeah.
What does a consumer goods inspector actually do?
Right.
I was checking out RoleCatcher's career guide,
Yeah.
and it's so much more than just like, spotting a scratch on a product.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What'd you find?
You're the gatekeeper of quality. You're the one making sure products meet these super high standards before they ever even get to the consumer. It's a huge responsibility.
It is.
Think about all the products you use every single day.
Yeah.
Your phone, your furniture, everything.
Right.
A consumer goods inspector had a hand in making sure those things were safe and that they worked right.
I never really thought about it like that.
Yeah,
That's amazing how much we rely on these professionals.
it's true.
Okay, let's jump into the interview prep. We're going to be focusing on the 9 key questions that are straight from RoleCatcher's guide.
Sounds good.
And remember, while we're going through these, that RoleCatcher's AI can actually analyze job descriptions to identify missing skills in your resume
Uh-huh.
and suggest tailored answers for specific roles and even give you feedback on your responses.
Yeah, helps you refine how you're delivering your answers and make sure you're really hitting the right points.
Okay, so first up, a classic opener.
All right.
What made you interested in becoming a consumer goods inspector?
Seems simple, right?
It does seem simple, but I feel like this is your chance to showcase genuine passion.
Oh, definitely not just a generic answer. Oh, I like things. I like to make sure things are good.
Right, exactly. It's about connecting your personal values to the role.
Right.
And showing that you've done your homework on the company and its products.
Absolutely.
So, for example, maybe you're really passionate about sustainability,
Uh-huh.
and you see this role as a way to contribute to responsible manufacturing.
Exactly.
So you've really thought about it.
Yeah, and you've connected it to something bigger than yourself.
Yes. And now imagine a follow-up question.
Okay.
Can you give an example of a specific product we make that aligns with your values and why?
Oh, that's a good one.
Be ready with an insightful answer that demonstrates you've really gone beyond just that surface-level research.
Right, you've really thought about it. Okay, let's move on. Let's get to a question that goes to the heart of the job here.
Right.
How do you ensure that the products you inspect meet regulatory requirements?
I'm guessing they're looking for more than just, I follow the rules.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Regulatory compliance, that's the backbone of this
Yeah.
entire profession. This is where you really showcase your knowledge of the specific regulations
Right.
and how you stay updated. And don't be afraid to drop some industry-specific terms to show that you really know what you're talking about.
Give me an example.
Like equal sampling,
What is that?
acceptable quality limit.
Oh, okay.
You know, show them you're in the know. And always back up your answers with specific examples from your experience.
Like what?
Like, did you ever find a product that didn't meet the regulations? And maybe by doing that, you prevented a safety hazard.
Wow.
That's a story that will make you stand out.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of stories, I'm curious how you'd handle a question like this.
Okay.
Tell me about a time you had to deal with a manufacturer who disagreed with your assessment of a product.
Oh, that sounds like a potential minefield.
It definitely can be.
Yeah.
But it's also a fantastic opportunity to show them how good you are at diplomacy and conflict resolution.
Because
Because it's not about winning an argument. You're not trying to be right. It's about finding a solution that makes sure the product is high quality and that it's safe for the consumer. So walk me through how you would approach this situation.
Okay, first, you really want to emphasize that you're objective.
Okay,
You're focused on facts and evidence.
got it.
And then explain how you communicate. How would you explain your findings to them clearly and respectfully? You'd use data and industry standards to back up what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
And a great way to really show them you can do this is by sharing a specific example of a time when you had a conflict like this
Right.
and how you navigated it successfully by communicating clearly and working together with the manufacturer.
That's a great strategy.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to a question that tests your organizational skills.
All right, hit me.
How do you prioritize your workload as a consumer goods inspector?
Ooh.
So I'm guessing time management is a big part of this job.
It's huge. You're always juggling tons of projects and deadlines, so this is where you really want to show them how good you are at figuring out which tasks are the most important, and then prioritize them based on their impact and how urgent they are. You want to show them you can stay organized even when things are crazy busy.
I like that. And again, think of a specific example of a time when you managed a super demanding workload. Did you use any special tools or methods to stay on track?
Sharing those details can really impress the interviewer.
Okay, on to a question that seems pretty technical.
All right.
What is your approach to identifying defects in consumer goods? So this is where all those inspection skills come in, right?
This is it. This is your time to shine. Show them your expertise and how methodical you are. Think about all the different types of defects you might find.
Like what?
Cracks, scratches, malfunctions, misalignments.
Oh, yeah.
The list goes on and on.
So many things could go wrong.
And this is a good time to mention specific tools or techniques you know how to use.
Right.
Like using a caliper to measure dimensions or a microscope to examine surface imperfections.
Okay.
And don't forget to mention different inspection methodologies like visual inspection standards or aqual sampling.
Right. We talked about that earlier.
Exactly. And a really great way to show them what you can do is to share an example of a time when you spotted a really tiny defect that maybe someone else would have missed. And by finding it, you prevented a safety problem or a quality issue.
I love how you're weaving in those real-life examples.
It makes it so much more real.
It does. All right. How about this question?
Okay.
How do you handle pressure from manufacturers to overlook minor defects?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
This is like an ethical dilemma waiting to happen.
It definitely can be.
Yikes.
This question is all about figuring out your integrity. Are you committed to those quality standards? You really have to emphasize that you follow the rules.
Okay.
And that you would never compromise consumer safety, even if someone is pressuring you to.
And how would you recommend answering a follow-up question like, can you give me an example of a time you had to stand your ground on a quality issue even when it was difficult?
That's where you really want to tell a story. Share a specific situation where you were pressured to overlook a defect, but you held your ground.
Yeah.
Explain why you made that decision and what the positive impact was. Maybe you prevented a bunch of products from being shipped out that were faulty. You want to show them that you have good judgment and that you're committed to doing the right thing, even when it's hard.
This is all great advice.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the next set of questions, I want to circle back to RoleCatcher's AI for a minute.
Sure.
I know we touched on it earlier, but can you go into a little more detail about how their platform can actually help candidates tailor their answers for specific job roles?
It's all about personalization. Let's say you're applying for a role that really emphasizes statistical process control.
Okay.
RoleCatcher's AI can look at the job description, and then it will actually suggest that you highlight specific examples of times when you use statistics to find trends and improve quality.
Wow, that's so smart.
It really is. It's like a cheat sheet for every single interview. And the feedback feature is incredible.
Tell me more about that.
You can practice your answers, and the AI will analyze how you're speaking, your tone of voice, even what you're saying. It helps you figure out what you need to improve and how to present yourself better.
I'm already feeling more confident just hearing about these tools. Okay, let's dive into the next batch of questions from RoleCatcher's guide. They seem to focus on staying up to date with industry trends and showcasing those all-important soft skills. Ready to unpack those?
Absolutely. Let's do it. So this next question is all about showing them you're a lifelong learner.
Okay.
How do you stay up to date with industry trends and changes in regulations?
I can see how that would be a big one in this field. I mean, things are constantly changing.
Yeah, with technology and what consumers expect, you really got to stay on top of things.
Right.
A good inspector is always learning, so be ready to talk about some industry publications that you read.
Like what? What are some good examples?
Quality Progress is a good one, Consumer Reports, but don't just name drop them, you know. Talk about like a recent article that really grabbed your attention, something you learned from.
Well, that's smart. It shows you're really reading them and thinking about the content.
Well, right, exactly. What about professional organizations? Are you a member of any?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, like the American Society for Quality or something similar. Being part of those groups shows you're serious about your career.
Makes sense.
And conferences. Those are great for networking and learning about the latest trends.
Oh, yeah. You meet so many people.
Yeah, if you went to a recent industry event, tell them about it. It shows you're proactive.
Already picturing a potential follow-up question here.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
What's a recent industry trend that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, you got to be ready for that one. So before the interview, you should think about a few trends that are happening in the industry,
Okay, give me some examples.
like the rise of 3D printing, the push for more sustainable products, the use of AI in quality control. All that stuff is changing the game. So come prepared with a couple of those in your back pocket.
Okay, speaking of those essential skills, the next question on RoleCatcher's list is a classic.
Hit me.
What qualities do you believe are essential for a consumer goods inspector?
Okay.
It's so tempting to just give those generic answers like attention to detail. But I'm guessing they want more than that.
Yeah, they want to see how you actually embody those qualities. So yeah, attention to detail is important.
It's like the number one thing.
But how have you shown that in your past jobs? Think of a specific example.
Like what?
Did you ever catch a mistake in a product's design that prevented a huge recall? That's the kind of story that'll make you memorable.
Like you always say, show don't tell.
Exactly. And the same goes for other qualities like communication skills, problem-solving abilities, ethical, conduct a strong work ethic. For each one, think of a real story that shows you have that quality.
So you're painting a picture of yourself as a competent and trustworthy professional.
Exactly. Okay, ready for the last question?
Get me.
This one's a bit of a curveball.
Oh, no.
What do you think is the most challenging aspect of being a consumer goods inspector?
Ooh, that does feel tricky.
Yeah, you don't want to sound like you're complaining or that you can't handle the job.
Right.
You got to be honest, but also show that you're self-aware and that you can adapt and overcome those challenges.
So how do you walk that line?
Choose a challenge that's real for you, but also something that highlights your strengths. Maybe it's dealing with the pressure of a really fast-paced production environment,
Okay.
or staying objective when a manufacturer is breathing down your neck, or even keeping up with all the new technology that's coming out all the time.
Those are all good ones.
And this is a good place to mention RoleCatcher's career guides again,
Oh yeah, why is that?
because they have a ton of info about the specific challenges you might face in different industries or companies.
So do your research.
Right. Like let's say you're interviewing for a job in the electronics industry.
Wow.
You could read their guide on that sector to learn about the trends and the challenges they're facing. It shows you've done your homework.
And speaking of preparation, RoleCatcher's AI-powered CV and resume builder can be super helpful too.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's like having a personal career coach and writing assistant all in one.
Right. Okay, we've gone through all the interview questions, but I think it's important to zoom out a bit and talk about the bigger picture.
What do you mean?
RoleCatcher's career guide gives you a lot of insight into what it's really like to be a consumer goods inspector day to day.
Like the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah, and the potential career paths, the whole landscape of the industry.
So paint me a picture. What's a typical day like for a consumer goods inspector?
Well, it depends on the industry and the company.
Okay.
You could be in a manufacturing plant, a quality control lab, an inspection station.
So lots of different environments.
Some inspectors are on their feet all day, carefully examining products on a production line.
I could see that.
Others might spend their time analyzing data, running tests, writing reports.
So you need to be flexible and comfortable in a lot of different settings.
Exactly. And the work can be tough.
In what way?
It's not always a clean, quiet environment. You might be dealing with noise dust, maybe even hazardous materials.
That's a good reality check.
So you got to be prepared for that. What about the career path itself? Do you think there's room for growth in this field?
That's a good question.
Absolutely. As you get more experience and knowledge, you can move up to roles like lead inspector, quality assurance supervisor, even quality manager.
So you're not just inspecting products. You could be leading teams, setting up quality systems, making sure companies are always delivering top-notch products to consumers.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher really emphasizes how important it is to keep learning if you want to move up in your career.
Like what kinds of things?
Going to workshops, taking online courses, getting industry certifications, all of that can open up new opportunities and help you become a leader in the field.
Makes sense. What about the downsides? Are there any things people should know about before jumping into this career?
Well, like we talked about before, the work environment can be challenging at times, and the job requires a lot of attention to detail, which can be mentally exhausting.
That sounds intense.
Some of the tasks can be repetitive too, and you have to be really good at documentation and record keeping.
Oh yeah, that's important.
So it's all about finding a career that fits your personality and what you like to do.
You got to play to your strengths.
Right. RoleCatcher's career guides can help you figure out what kind of company culture would be a good fit for you.
That's so helpful. Speaking of finding the right fit, How do you see the role of a consumer goods inspector changing in the future?
That's a great question. With all the new technology coming out, automation is definitely becoming a bigger part of quality control.
So robots are taking over.
Not quite. Automated systems can make things faster and more accurate, but they can't replace human judgment and critical thinking. So the role of the inspector is changing. They're going to need to be more focused on data analysis, trend prediction, problem solving.
It's like they're becoming tech-savvy detectives.
Right, using data to find potential problems before they even happen. That's why it's so important to keep learning new things in this field.
And it's not just about technical skills either. Communication, collaboration, adaptability, those are all going to be even more important as the industry changes.
That's a great point. Okay, so we've talked a lot about preparing for interviews and understanding what the job is like right now. But what about the future?
Right.
What should our listeners be thinking about as they move forward in this career?
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to think about.
I like it.
What innovations in consumer goods technology do you think will have the biggest impact on the role of inspectors in the future?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Think about new materials, new manufacturing processes, even the products themselves.
Right.
How are those changes going to affect the skills and expertise that inspectors need?
That's a fascinating question to consider.
It really is. It highlights the importance of staying curious, informed, and adaptable in this field.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And remember, platforms like RoleCatcher are there to help you every step of the way, from landing your first job to building a successful and fulfilling career in consumer goods inspection.
Okay, so we've talked about landing the job and even what a typical day might look like. But let's get ambitious for a second.
Okay, I like it.
What about climbing that career ladder? How do you move up in this field?
That's where RoleCatcher's section on advancing your career is so helpful. They've got all these potential career paths mapped out.
So it's not a dead-end job.
No way! You can start as an inspector and work your way up to senior management.
Wow, so what kind of upward mobility are we talking about? What are some examples?
Well, you could start as an inspector, then move up to lead inspector, maybe even quality assurance supervisor. And down the line, you could be managing entire departments, overseeing all the quality systems, even leading big strategic initiatives.
That's pretty impressive. What would you say are the key ingredients for success in this career? What do you really need to focus on?
Besides those technical skills we talked about, a few things really stand out. Continuous learning is super important.
Like what kinds of things?
Workshops, online courses, certifications, all that stuff shows you're committed to staying on top of your game.
It's like you're always leveling up your skills.
Exactly. And strong communication skills are crucial too.
Why is that?
You'll be talking to all sorts of people, manufacturers, engineers, managers, even consumers sometimes. So you got to be able to communicate clearly and effectively.
You're not just working with products, you're working with people.
Right. And problem solving is huge.
In what way?
When a quality issue pops up, you need to be able to think on your feet, analyze the data, and come up with solutions fast.
So you need to be a bit of a detective.
Exactly. You're using your skills to solve mysteries and make sure things are running smoothly.
I like that. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from those must-know interview questions to the future of the profession. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up? What do you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the big takeaway here is that a career in consumer goods inspection can be both stable and rewarding. It's an industry that's always changing, which means there are always new things to learn and new challenges to tackle.
That's a great point. And platforms like RoleCatcher can be so helpful along the way.
Absolutely.
They give you the tools, the resources, and the guidance you need to navigate this crazy world.
So whether you're just starting out or you're looking to move up in your career, remember to keep learning, keep growing, and never stop exploring.
Well said. Listeners, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of consumer goods inspection. We hope you feel inspired and prepared to ace those interviews and launch a successful career in this exciting field. And as you go forward, remember that question we asked earlier. What innovations do you think will shape the future of consumer goods inspection? Let that question spark your curiosity and keep you learning and growing. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep exploring.